The leather briefcase sat in the backseat like a bomb. Chike Okafor stared at it through his rearview mirror, his hands still gripping the steering wheel even though the engine was off. The street was quiet now. The rain had stopped. Lagos held its breath. He'd driven taxis for 11 years. 11 years of watching people climb into his backseat and climb out again, leaving behind nothing but the smell of expensive perfume or cheap beer. But this passenger had left something else. Something that didn't belong in a beaten Honda with duct tape holding the passenger door together. The passenger had been on his phone the entire ride, barking orders in English so crisp it sounded foreign. When they'd pulled up to the Echo Hotel, the man had tossed 500 naira onto the front seat without looking at Chike's face and disappeared into the building. The whole exchange had taken 90 seconds. Chike reached back slowly and pulled the briefcase onto his lap. It was heavy, real leather, the kind that cost more than 3 months of his earnings. The initials embossed in gold near the handle read, O.A. He knew those initials. Everyone in Lagos knew those initials. Obiora Adeyemi. Oil, real estate, shipping, banks. The man owned half of Victoria Island and had politicians on speed dial. His face was on billboards. His name was whispered, in traffic, in markets, in church. And he just left his briefcase in Chike's taxi. Chike clicked open the briefcase. Inside were documents, contracts with signatures he couldn't read, property deeds for addresses in Ikoyi, Banana Island, Lekki Phase 1, a checkbook with the logo of Zenith Bank printed in silver. And cash. Stacks of it, 1,000 naira notes bound with rubber bands. Chike counted quietly. 20 stacks. Each stack looked like 50 notes. That was 1 million naira. Just sitting there. In his taxi, Chike's phone buzzed. A new ride request. He ignored it. His daughter's school fees were due in 3 days. His wife needed surgery for the lump in her breast that the clinic said might be nothing, but the hospital said needed a biopsy they couldn't afford. His landlord had already given him 2 warnings. 1 stack could solve everything. 2 stacks could change everything. Before you judge what happens next, hit that subscribe button, because what Chike does in the next 60 seconds will either destroy his family or save them in a way no one expects. He sat there in the darkness of his taxi, parked under a flickering streetlight on Amadou Bello Way, holding a briefcase that wasn't his and a future that could be. His phone rang. The name on the screen read, Nosy. He didn't answer. It rang again. He answered. Chike, where are you? Her voice was strained, tired. She'd been tired for 2 years now. Still working. It's past 11. You said you'd be home by 9. I had a long-distance passenger. Silence. Then Ngozi's voice, quieter now. The hospital called again. They said, if we don't bring 150,000 naira by Friday, they'll cancel the appointment. Chike closed his eyes. Friday was in 2 days. I'll find it. How? Ngozi's voice cracked. How, Chike? We've borrowed from everyone. Your brother won't even answer your calls anymore. My mother thinks I married a useless man. I said I'll find it. Silence. Our daughter asked me today why we don't eat chicken anymore. She's 7 years old, Chike. She shouldn't have to notice that. The line went dead. Chike sat there, staring at the briefcase. He opened it again. This time he pulled out 1 stack, held it in his hand. 50,000 naira. 3 weeks of work. Right there in his palm. He could take 3 stacks. Just 3. 150,000 naira. Ngozi's surgery. A man like Obiora Adeyemi wouldn't even notice. Men like that lost more money in the cushions of their leather couches than Chike made in a year. Chike started the engine. He drove slowly through the empty streets of Victoria Island, past the high gates and the sleeping security guards, past the luxury cars parked in driveways, past the world he would never belong to. When he reached his neighborhood in Ajigunle, the streets were narrower, darker. The smell of open gutters mixed with frying akara from a late-night food cellar. Children slept on mats outside their parents' rooms because the heat inside was unbearable. Chike parked in front of his building, a 3-story structure with peeling paint and rusty balconies. He lived on the 2nd floor. One room. Kitchen in the corner. Bathroom shared with 3 other families. He took the briefcase and walked upstairs. When he opened the door, Ngozi was still awake. She sat on the edge of their mattress, which lay directly on the floor. A single bulb hung from the ceiling. Their daughter, Adana, slept on a small mat in the corner, covered with a wrapper. Ngozi looked up when Chike entered. Her eyes were red. "You're finally back." "Yes." She noticed the briefcase immediately. Her expression changed. "What is that?" Chike set it down on the floor. "A passenger left it in the taxi." Ngozi stood up slowly. "What kind of passenger?" "A rich one." She walked closer and stared at the briefcase. "Did you open it?" Chike hesitated, then nodded. "What's inside?" "Documents. Money." Ngozi's breathing quickened. "How much money?" "A lot." She knelt down and opened the briefcase herself. When she saw the cash, her hand flew to her mouth. She looked up at Chike with wide eyes. "Chike." She started pulling out the stacks, counting them with shaking hands. When she finished, she looked at him again. 1 million naira. "Yes." Ngozi stood up, holding one stack. "Do you know what this means? Do you know what we could do with this?" "It's not ours." She stared at him. "What?" "It belongs to someone. I have to return it." Ngozi's expression shifted from shock to anger. "Return it? Chike, are you mad?" "It's not ours," he repeated. "So what?" she snapped. "This man left it in your taxi. He was careless. That's his problem, not yours." "Ngozi." "No." She cut him off. "No, Chike. I'm tired of this. I'm tired of praying and fasting and believing God will provide. I'm tired of watching our daughter go to bed hungry. I'm tired of this lump in my chest growing bigger while we wait for a miracle." Her voice broke. "This is the miracle, Chike. This is God answering our prayers. And you want to give it back? And Chike looked at his wife, at the exhaustion carved into her face, at the desperation in her eyes. "What if it was our money?" he asked quietly. "What if I left something in someone's car and they kept it? How would you feel?" "I would feel stupid for being careless." "Ngozi." She grabbed his arm. "Chike, listen to me. We can take just enough for my surgery. Just 150,000. The rest we return. He won't even notice it's missing." "And what do we tell Adana when she grows up? That we stole?" "We wouldn't be stealing. We'd be surviving." Chike pulled his arm away gently. "There's a difference." Ngozi's eyes filled with tears. "So you're choosing this stranger over your own family?" "I'm choosing to do the right thing." "The right thing?" She laughed bitterly. "The right thing doesn't pay hospital bills, Chike. The right thing doesn't put food on the table. The right thing doesn't send our daughter to school." She picked up the briefcase and held it out to him. "If you return this money, I swear to God, I will never forgive you." If this story is gripping your heart, subscribe now. Because the choice Chike makes tonight will haunt him for years, but not in the way you think. Stay with me. The room went silent. Adana stirred in her sleep, but didn't wake. Chike looked at his wife, at the woman he'd married 9 years ago when they were both young and stupid and thought love was enough. At the woman who'd stood by him through every failure, every disappointment, every broken promise. "I have to return it," he said quietly. Ngozi's face crumpled. She threw the briefcase at his feet and turned away. "Then go," she whispered. "Go and return it. And when you come back empty-handed, don't expect me to be here." She lay down on the mattress, her back to him, her shoulders shaking. Chike stood there for a long time, staring at the briefcase. Then he picked it up and walked out. He drove to a quiet spot near the lagoon. He parked and sat in the darkness, watching the water shimmer under the moonlight. He thought about Ngozi's words, about Adana's face when she asked why they didn't eat chicken anymore, about the landlord's warning, about the hospital's deadline. He thought about opening the briefcase one more time and taking just enough to survive. But then he thought about his father. His father had been a carpenter, a quiet man who built furniture for people in the neighborhood. He died when Chike was 15. But before he died, he'd told Chike something. A man's wealth is not in his pocket, his father had said. It's in his name. If people can't trust your name, you have nothing. Chike had carried those words for 20 years. He started the engine and drove toward Victoria Island. The Adeyemi estate sat behind 12-foot walls topped with electric wire. 2 security men stood at the gate, both wearing crisp black uniforms and earpieces like they were guarding the president. Chike pulled up slowly. One of the guards approached, already frowning. "Wedding you want?" the guard asked in pidgin, his hand resting on the baton at his hip. "I need to see Mr. Adeyemi." The guard laughed. "You and 500 other people. Come out for here before I call police. I have something that belongs to him. If not business proposal, bring am during office hours. This na person house. You no fit just." Chike held up the briefcase through the window. The guard's expression changed instantly. His eyes went wide. He stepped back and spoke quickly into his radio. 30 seconds later, the gate slid open. Drop a like if you're still watching. Because what's waiting for Chike inside that mansion isn't just a billionaire. It's a secret that will rewrite everything you thought you understood about this story. Hit that subscribe button so you don't miss what happens next. They searched him twice, patted him down like a criminal, checked his ID, made him wait in a small security room with concrete walls and a single plastic chair. 30 minutes passed. Then 45. Chike's phone buzzed. It was Ngozi. He didn't answer. It buzzed again. A text message. "If you do this, we're finished." Chike put the phone in his pocket. Finally, a woman appeared. She was middle-aged, elegant, wearing a cream-colored suit that probably cost more than Chike's taxi. Her name tag read, "Mrs. Nwosu, Chief of Staff." "You're the taxi driver?" she asked, her tone clipped. "Yes, ma." She looked him up and down. Her eyes lingered on his worn shirt, his scuffed shoes, the faded jeans with a small tear near the knee. "How did you get this briefcase?" "A passenger left it in my taxi." "What passenger?" "I don't know his name, but the initials on the briefcase match Mr. Adeyemi's." Mrs. Nwosu's eyes narrowed. "Did you open it?" Chike hesitated. "Yes, ma. And everything is inside. I didn't take anything." She studied him for a long moment. Then she picked up a phone on the wall and spoke quietly to someone. When she hung up, she turned back to Chike. "Come with me." She led him through the compound, past fountains that looked like art installations, past gardens with flowers Chike couldn't name, past cars parked in a circular driveway, each one worth more than Chike would earn in 20 years. They entered the main house. The Jenston Neck. They entered the main house. Chike had never seen anything like it. The floors were marble. The ceiling was high, decorated with chandeliers that looked like frozen waterfalls. Paintings hung on the walls, and Chike didn't know art, but he knew expensive when he saw it. Mrs. Nwosu stopped in front of a large wooden door. "Wait here." She knocked once, then entered, closing the door behind her. Chike stood in the hallway, still holding the briefcase. His heart pounded. He felt small, out of place, like a stain on a white shirt. He heard voices inside, muffled. One voice was Mrs. Nwosu's. The other was deeper, male, irritated. The door opened. Mrs. Nwosu stepped out, her expression unreadable. "He'll see you now." Chike stepped inside. The office was enormous. One wall was entirely glass, overlooking the estate and the city lights beyond. A massive desk sat in the center, made of dark wood that gleamed under soft lighting. Behind the desk sat Obiora Adeyemi. He was older than Chike expected. Late 50s, maybe early 60s. His hair was gray at the temples. His face was lined but strong. He wore a white kaftan embroidered with gold thread, and when he looked up at Chike, his eyes were sharp, calculating. "You're the driver?" Obiora asked. His voice was deep, controlled. "Yes, sir." "And you have my briefcase?" "Yes, sir." Obiora gestured to Mrs. Nwosu, who took the briefcase from Chike's hands and placed it on the desk. Obiora opened it slowly. He checked the documents. flipped through the contracts, looked at the checkbook. Then he pulled out the cash and counted it. Everything was there. He closed the briefcase and looked at Chike again. Do you know what's inside this? Yes, sir. And you didn't take anything? Chike hesitated. No, sir. Obiora's eyes narrowed. Nothing at all. No, sir. Not even one note. No, sir. Obiora leaned back in his chair and studied Chike for a long moment. The silence stretched, uncomfortable, heavy. Then Obiora did something unexpected. He laughed. Not a polite laugh. A real laugh. Deep and sudden and almost bitter. You're either the most honest man in Lagos, Obiora said, or the biggest fool. Chike didn't know what to say. Obiora stood up and walked around the desk. He stopped a few feet from Chike. What's your name? Chike Okafor, sir. How long have you been driving taxis? 11 years, sir. Married? Yes, sir. I have a wife and a daughter. Obiora nodded slowly. And your wife knows you're here? Returning this money. Chike's throat tightened. Yes, sir. What did she say? Chike looked down. And paused. I know she told you not to come. Obiora's expression didn't change. But you came anyway. Yes, sir. Why? Because it's not mine. Obiora walked to the window and looked out at the city. For a long moment he said nothing. Then, quietly, my father was a taxi driver. If you didn't see that coming, smash the subscribe button. Because this is just the beginning. What Obiora tells Chike next will explain why some people stay poor forever, while others break the cycle in one generation. Chike blinked. He wasn't sure he'd heard correctly. Obiora turned back to face him. In 1983, my father drove a taxi in Surulere. We lived in one room. My mother sold vegetables in the market. I was the oldest of 6 children. He paused. One day, my father picked up a man, a Lebanese businessman. The man left a bag in the back seat. My father opened it. Inside was $20,000 in cash. Chike's breath caught. My father brought the money home. Obiora continued. He showed it to my mother. She cried. She begged him to keep it. Just enough to move us out of that room. Enough to send me and my brothers to school. She said God had sent the money to us. That it was a blessing. Obiora's voice grew quieter. But my father refused. He said it wasn't ours. He said taking it would make us thieves. And thieves never prosper. My mother was furious. She didn't speak to him for 3 days. Chike listened, his heart pounding. The next morning, my father returned the bag to the Lebanese man. The man was shocked. He asked my father why he didn't keep it. My father said, because it would teach my children that stealing is acceptable when you're desperate. Obiora looked directly at Chike. The Lebanese man owned an oil company. He was so impressed by my father's honesty that he offered him a job. A real job. Security supervisor. It wasn't much, but it was stable. Legal. My father accepted. 5 years later, that same man helped me get a scholarship to study business in London. And when I came back, he introduced me to people. People who gave me opportunities. People who trusted me because they trusted my father. He paused. Everything I have started because my father returned a bag he didn't have to return. The room fell silent. Chike felt something tighten in his chest. He didn't know what to say. Obiora walked back to his desk and sat down. He pulled out a checkbook and began writing. Your wife was right to be angry with you, Obiora said without looking up. You came here with 1 million naira that could have solved all your problems. And you're leaving with nothing. He tore off the check and held it out. Chike took it slowly. The check was for 500,000 naira. His hands started shaking. Sir, this is too much. I can't. You can. Obiora said firmly. And you will. That's not charity. That's payment. You returned something that was mine when no one was watching. That kind of character is rare. Chike's vision blurred. He blinked rapidly, trying to hold back tears. Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. Obiora raised a hand. I'm not finished. He pressed a button on his desk. Mrs. Nwosu entered immediately. I want you to take Mr. Okafor's information. Tomorrow morning, have HR draft an employment contract. He'll be joining us as a trainee site supervisor in the construction division. Salary starts at 250,000 naira per month. Chika's legs nearly gave out. Sir, I don't understand. You will, Obiora said. I'm not giving you this job because I'm kind, Chike. I'm giving it to you because I see something in you that I haven't seen in 20 years. My father had it, and it's the only thing worth more than all the money in that briefcase. He stood and extended his hand. Report Monday morning, 7 a.m. Don't be late. Chike shook his hand, his entire body trembling. Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. As Chike turned to leave, Obiora called after him. Chike. He stopped and turned back. One more thing. Yes, sir? Go home to your wife. Give her that check. Tell her she was right to be angry. Tell her you understand why she wanted you to keep the money. And then tell her this. The reason you didn't keep it wasn't because you're foolish. It's because you're building something more valuable than money. You're building a name your daughter can be proud of. Chike nodded, unable to speak. He walked out of the office, through the mansion, past the fountains and the gates and the guards, and back to his taxi. He sat in the driver's seat and looked at the check in his hand. Then he started the engine and drove home. When Chike opened the door to their room, Nosy was still awake. She sat in the same position, her back against the wall, her arms wrapped around her knees. She looked up when he entered. Her face was hard. You actually did it, she said. You actually gave it back. Chike nodded. Ngozi laughed bitterly. So now what? We wait for another miracle? Chike walked over and knelt down in front of her. He pulled out the check and placed it in her hands. Ngozi looked down. Her eyes went wide. What is this? Payment, Chike said quietly, for returning the briefcase. She stared at the check, her hands shaking. 500,000 naira. Yes, one. Tears started rolling down her face. And there's more, Chike continued. I have a job, a real job, with Adiemi Holdings. Starting Monday, 250,000 naira per month. Ngozi covered her mouth with both hands. She looked at Chike, then at the check, then at Chike again. I don't understand. The man whose briefcase I returned, Chike said. His father was also a taxi driver. And his father also found money that didn't belong to him. And his father also returned it. And that decision changed everything. Ngozi's tears fell faster now. I'm sorry, she whispered. I'm so sorry, Chike. I was wrong. I was so wrong. Chike pulled her into his arms and held her tightly. You weren't wrong to want to survive, he said. You were just scared. And I understand. They sat there together on the floor of their one-room apartment, holding each other, crying together, while their daughter slept peacefully in the corner. 6 months later, Chike stood on a construction site in Lekki, wearing a hard hat and a vest with the Adiemi Holdings logo. He was no longer a taxi driver. He was a trainee supervisor learning how buildings rose from the ground. He worked 12-hour days. He studied at night. He asked questions until his supervisors got tired of answering. But he learned. One afternoon, Obiora visited the site unannounced. He found Chike reviewing blueprints with the site engineer, pointing out a measurement that didn't match the specifications. You're right, the engineer admitted, surprised. Good catch. Obiora smiled. Later, he called Chike into the site office. You're doing well. Thank you, sir. I'm trying. Obiora nodded. I want to tell you something, Chike. Something I didn't tell you that night. Yes, sir? The Lebanese man who gave my father a job. His name was Mr. Kamal. He died 10 years ago, but before he died, he called me to his bedside. He told me that the day my father returned his money was the day he learned something important. What did he learn, sir? That integrity can't be bought. It can only be recognized. And when you recognize it, you invest in it. Obiora paused. That's what I'm doing with you, Chike. I'm investing in your integrity, because men like you are rare, and rare things are valuable. Chica's throat tightened. I won't let you down, sir. I know you won't. 3 years later, Chike stood in a new house in a quiet part of Ikeja, 3 bedrooms, a small yard, a gate that locked. It wasn't a mansion, but it was his. Ngozi stood beside him, healthy now, the surgery long behind her. Adana, now 10, ran through the house excitedly, choosing which room would be hers. That evening, after Adana went to bed, Chike and Nosy sat on their small balcony. Do you ever think about that night? Nosy asked. The night you found the briefcase? Chike nodded. Every day. Do you ever wonder what would have happened if you'd kept the money? Chike looked at her. Yes. And we would have survived. Maybe for a year, maybe 2. But eventually the money would have run out, and we'd be right back where we started. He paused. But because I returned it, we didn't just survive. We changed. Everything changed. Ngozi rested her head on his shoulder. I'm proud of you, she whispered. I'm proud of the man you are. Inside the house, Adana slept peacefully in her own bed, in her own room, in a house her father had earned not by taking what didn't belong to him, but by giving back what did. And somewhere across the city, in a mansion behind 12-foot walls, Abura Adeyemi sat in his study, thinking about his father. About Mr. Kamal, about Chike, and about the invisible thread that connects one generation's integrity to the next generation's opportunity. The briefcase was never the test. The test was what you did when no one would ever know, and the reward was not what you gained. It was who you became. Chike didn't just return a briefcase that night, he returned to the man his father raised him to be. And in doing so, he gave his daughter something no amount of stolen money could ever buy, a father whose name means something. Because here's what most people don't understand about wealth. It's not just what you accumulate, it's what you refuse to compromise to get it. The real question isn't whether Chike made the right choice. The real question is, what would you have done? If you were sitting in that taxi, with your wife's surgery on the line, your daughter going hungry, your landlord at your door, and 1 million naira sitting in your hands with no witnesses, no cameras, no consequences. Would you have the strength to choose your integrity over your survival? If this story made you think twice about the choices you're making in your own life, subscribe to this channel right now. Because every week, we bring you stories that don't just entertain you, they challenge you to become the person you know you're supposed to be. Hit that subscribe button, turn on notifications, and tell me in the comments, would you have returned the briefcase? One side and compare. Until next time, remember, your character is built in the moments when no one is watching. And that character is the only inheritance that truly lasts.